Future, where people stop aging after 25, thanks to some genetic engineering. But it's just a kind of scientific excuse to explain the world in this movie. Instead of money, they use time as currency, because someone thought it was a good way to control the population. Seriously, if no one was dying of old age anymore, the earth would become overpopulated very quickly, and less human ways of cutting down on numbers would be popular. That is war and things like that. The main character is Will, who lives in a poor neighborhood when excess time is a luxury and people struggle to survive. He wakes up with 24 hours to spare and gives a present to his mom on her 50th birthday. Why does the concept of birthday still make any sense if people can literally live forever? Oh yeah, I get it, because he's in a poor part of the world and surviving 1 year is a great achievement, and the rich probably use birthday as an excuse to throw big parties or something. Capitalism in pure form. Health has been fixed, but everything else? Business as usual. The strange thing is that literally everyone is immortal. It seems to me that selling immortality for a lot of money would be more profitable, and certainly more humane. Because now there are people who live like slaves, and if they don't get paid enough, they literally run out of time and die. So there's no other way to live, but to be cog in this great machine of capitalism. Alright, but let's see the plot. Will goes to work in the factory, where we are immediately shown information about inflation. Example, coffee has gone up 30% in 1 day. They also introduce us to mythical arm wrestling, which we won't know how it works until Will plays it later in the movie. We also see what happens when someone runs out of time. He literally loses the right to live. Stupid system. Not only everything is more expensive, but wages are getting worse and worse. Surely this has to be this genius way of eliminating poor part of society. Doesn't matter. Then Will goes to a pub with his friend and meets Henry there, an extremely wealthy man, who is basically tired of living and decides to share his time with Will, because apparently he saved him or something. But actually he was just a random person, who happened to still have some empathy. Well, who would have expected that a person living hundreds of years would lose the will to live, despite his wealth? After all, according to movie explanation, immortality happened because of this magical genetic engineering that caused the cells to stop losing their ability to divide over time, thus fixing the problem of aging. But wait, brain works differently. Neurons do not replicate, therefore in reality, old people lose their mental capacity over time. Imagine what happens when hundreds of rich people with millions of years in the bank live for over 200 years each, and their brain gradually turns into mud over time, and they are the ones who rule the world in this wonderful system. Interesting. It's just a shame that the movie won't show the mental degeneration ever again. Now, Will learns that the system is fucked. Shocking information. People in the ghetto are killed, so the rich can live forever. Wait a minute, I still don't understand this system. Extra time is only created in children, because they get a year for free, but it is unlocked when they reach 25, and then that year affects the market. And why the same cannot be applied to other animals, like if someone applied the same system to pigs or something. With one small farm, they could flood the market with time. Doesn't matter. Henry dies, but gives Will all his time, who of course is later accused of his murder. Then his mom dies, and he gets so pissed at the system that he decides to do something about it. Oh yes, and the police are hunting him, so he decides to travel to the richest area. Of course, the next best logical move is to bet all his time on a poker game. Without any problem, he manages to get a straight in the last card, thus basically robbing the richest man in the world of thousands of years. At the casino he meets Sylvia, who invites him to a party. There we see this pathological picture of a multi-generational family, and how Sylvia disagrees with all the injustices in this society, even though she is unaware of everything. After a passionate conversation, Will discovers that the elite controls access to time, and the poor are systematically exploited. Big surprise. Unfortunately, technology of the future makes it easy to track Will down very quickly, because this idiot didn't even try to hide, and bought himself a really expensive car. Doesn't matter, they take his time, but Will escapes easily by kidnapping Sylvie. Suddenly, he changes into a professional car driver, so they lose the chase. I wonder where he got these skills from. After all, it was unlikely that he even see a car in his extremely wealthy neighborhood. Idiots drove back to ghetto, where they immediately got robbed from almost all of their time. At the last second, they managed to sell earrings. And then blackmail her father for 1,000 years, which he wasn't supposed to give to Will, just transferred to a charity in ghetto. When the rich old man refused to give funds to charity, Sylvie turned against him and decided to help bring down the system. they came up with a brilliant idea that probably no one ever tried before. That is, they drove a truck into a bank. They took a lot of time and gave away the rest to the hungry crowd. They then robbed even more banks, giving away time to the people. I wonder, when will they realize that simply giving away time will do nothing about the real problem, which is the system? Police can confiscate this stolen time anyway, and even if they don't, the capitalistic pressure on the ghetto will increase anyway, so that this time will go back where it came from. It's not the bank that's the problem, it's this stupid need to use time as currency. Irrelevant. They find them in a hotel, and to escape they use a smart strategy, which is waiting until their opponents start chasing them, instead of just running immediately. But still, it went pretty easy, because they bribed the bus driver, and the chase is over. At the next hotel, other criminals find them. This time Will defeats their boss in an arm wrestling match, and again, they escape with ease. At least they realize that what they are doing makes no sense, because banks are simply raising interest rates. Then, geniuses conclude that the solution to this problem is to give away even more time, with the hope that this will break the system. They decide to rob her father, and take away exactly 1 million years. It is really interesting that this banker had such poor security on his gigantic safe, because all they needed is one code, which was obvious to Sylvie, because it was Darwin's date of birth, as he and others of course liked to twist the meaning of Darwin's discoveries. The rich man thinks that the system is analogous to natural selection, but that makes no sense at all, because evolution is about passing on to your children randomly altered genes, and it's not about who was born into a better family, or who can kill thousands of people to collect a few more years. I don't understand something else. There are billions of people in the world, and most of them probably in the poor areas. Giving away even 1 million years shouldn't change anything in the system, because if someone gets a few months, they will be happy, but it won't give them anything after these few months, when that money literally evaporates to the air. Oh, that's right, I didn't mention one big problem that's not explained in this movie. How is this time even created? All we know that people are born with 1 year on the clock, which can be only used after 25 years. But every human being has to survive until then, and children need care from at least one other person for the first few years of life. That means someone has to waste many years so that 1 year can appear on the market. It doesn't make sense. Even if it was possible to give birth and then profit after 25 years was like half a year, then twice as many children would have to be born every year as people living at the moment. It would be an infinite growth system in which the population has to grow exponentially. There is probably some other process that keeps this system in some kind of balance, but they didn't mention that. Probably someone was too lazy when making this movie, or what they came up with didn't make sense and only introduced more problems. It is hard to come up with something to sustain this stupid idea, but I'm getting off topic. They steal the million, then flee to the ghetto, but the policeman Robocop quickly finds them, so we have a chase scene starting in the richest district. After a while, Will destroys one of the gates on the border of the zone, and suddenly they're in a ghetto. Although Will had previously passed through many zones to get from the poorest section to the richest one. Did he take some kind of a shortcut or teleport? Irrelevant. They quickly gave this million to the crowd, which gave them some time to escape. Really, they are just running away all the time in this movie. I wonder how Sylvie is in such shape to run a few kilometers every day if she lived in luxury all her life, and I don't think she played any sport professionally. Although maybe all of this is because of this wonderful genetic engineering, and apparently they are all just marathon runners. Of course, at the end they are stopped by the Terminator, who, for the purpose of the plot, forgot to take more time with him, because he was blinded by his bloodlust. After a very dramatic time run scene, copied one-to-one from the beginning of this movie, everything ends happily, and they continue their idiotic crusade to now rob bigger and bigger banks. It is interesting why everyone suddenly started spending money like idiots. 1 million years divided between couple thousand people. It's really not that much, if they have to pay more than a year to travel to a richest area. So most of that stolen money goes back to the bank anyway. How do they even want to help at all, if they just steal from the rich and give to the poor? Yeah, that's cute, but the elite will easily get it back, and everything will return to normal. Fortunately, this kind of future doesn't seem to be possible. Genetic engineering that prevents aging? Come on. We'll never be able to eliminate all kinds of random mutations that we are all born with, because evolution. However, there is one thing I can agree with this film. Capitalism can also destroy our world, but more indirectly, because I don't think what we have right now will stop climate change. But not this thing that they invented in this movie.